Recently, when I was in Finland, I met with the American counter-jihadist Kenneth Sikorski, who lives in Finland and who has the blog site Tundra Tabloids, where he comments on current events. But before we take a look at my conversation with Mr. Sikorski, let me just say this. This is my day job. I am very grateful to all my patrons and donors. Without you, I wouldn't be able to do this, so thank you all very much. And if you like what I do, and if you want me to continue doing this, do consider sending me $1 or $2, or 10, or 100. That's always greatly appreciated. Also, like, share, comment, and tell your friends about this channel. Now, let's have a look at the conversation. So today, I'm in Helsinki with Kenneth Sikorski, and perhaps you could say a few words about yourself as an introduction.
Well, I am an American who's been living in Finland for over 30 years. I run a blog called Untitled Tabloids, and I monitor, observe Israel-related news as well as anti-Islamization related information, articles, and so forth.
Okay, that's very interesting. So great to have you here.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. And there are a few things I would like to ask you about. So, Asia Bibi, she was recently acquitted in Pakistan,
right?
And reportedly she's been freed and is now out of the country. There are some diverging details about this in the media.
Mm-hmm.
From what I hear, she's actually out of the country with her family.
Right.
But what can we say about about her case and why was she freed?
Well, the first thing I would think about concerning her case was that there was actually laws on the books for blasphemy. That's the first and foremost.
Yeah.
There's actually not that many people really realize, even in this day and age, the explosion, literally, of Islam on the scene, blasphemy laws that demand, death of the person who's blaspheming. Let's put it that way. That itself is troublesome. Second of all, I think not only of this woman and her family, but of every single minority, Christian, Jew, Zoroastrian, whatever,
yeah,
who live under the legal system in Islamic countries,
right,
and that they live in a very precarious situation,
yeah,
and the way that they have to live in order to eke out a living.
Yeah.
Living in fear of whether or not their neighbors, out of jealousy, spite, whatever the reason,
right,
will somehow cause them some type of trouble, whether they're going to have to either flee or get arrested or executed.
Yeah.
So,
and I think an interesting part about this case in Pakistan is that even after she was acquitted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan, my guess is that the international pressure actually did something good here. But even after that, you had the mob who demanded her to be hanged. So yeah, even when the legal system says, okay, fine, we'll let her go, then you have this angry mob who just wants to kill her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we've seen this time and time again, haven't we?
Yeah.
The mob is. Let's just say things as they are. That retribution, vigilantism, basically is the better word for it, is part and parcel with the Islamic thinking.
Right.
And vigilantism rules the street, and the leaders of these countries for how long Islam has been in existence use the mob to keep the people in control.
Yeah. So moving over to Europe.
Okay.
I was thinking about the situation for, critics of Islam or opponents of Islam, whatever we want to call ourselves, in Western Europe. Just a few days ago, the Sweden Democrat Kristoffer Larsson, he was prosecuted for hate speech. And what he stated, at least what I read in the media, was that both mosques and Islamic terrorists both proclaim Allah Akbar.
Yeah.
And apparently that's hate speech, to state a fact. But anyway, there are also several other cases. We have Sebastian Tynkkynen in Finland, who was fined for having posted anti-Islamic pictures on Facebook and Twitter. Mm-hmm. You have Merete Hodne in Norway, mm-hmm. Who was prosecuted and fined in Norway for refusing to treat a client who was wearing a hijab, who said, if you take off your hijab, you're welcome in my in my salon. But yeah, you have Tommy Robinson, of course, in the UK. You have the ruling in the European Court of Human Rights. You have Fjordman. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So, do we really have freedom of speech in Western Europe when it comes to Islam or criticizing Islam, or are we seeing a pattern here of some kind?
Let me put it this way: Asiya Bibi and her family would not want to be going to Sweden, would she?
No.
I mean, really. I mean, I think people, Muslims who have, Muslims, former Muslims, atheist Muslims, whatever, who have left the Middle East and elsewhere around the world where Islam reigns supreme, have come to the West seeking refuge. We give them refuge, and then they invite those who would, persecute them.
Yeah.
So obviously, this woman, which is the most newest case in a long line of many, will not want to be going to Sweden. I guarantee you. Yes, Daniel Pipes, the Professor Pipes, who runs the Middle Eastern Forum. He, the Rushdie affair, something that he had discussed, researched ages ago, gave witness to the fact that once the West succumbed to the Iranians, Sharia law, let's put it that way. That's a turning point in Western history, where we allowed others to dictate to us our own morals and basically made our own morals, values subservient to those in the Middle East under the Sharia law. So that was a pivotal point, and everything else just cascades from that point.
Yeah.
This is where we're at right now.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because I am old enough to remember Salman Rushdie and his book, The Satanic Verses. And I remember the reaction from people in Sweden, where I was living at the time. And then I remember, somewhat less than 20 years later, you had the Danish cartoonists, the Mohammed cartoons. And the reaction was completely different. Here in Finland, speaking of that time, when the dreaded Mohammed cartoons erupted, that the Jyllands-Posten editor of the cultural portion of that paper, Fleming Rose, received no support here in Finland, outside maybe one small cultural paper on Eastern Finland. I think it was Christian-based paper, and they were raked over the coals for it. And the head of the, I think it was Virukinen was his last name. I don't remember his first name. Not that important. Of the Helsinki Sanomat, who was the editor-in-chief. And he basically said that there's good journalism and there's bad journalism. We represent the good journalism. We won't be printing the Muhammad cartoons. And so later on they actually did, there was a picture of a picture. And so they got it through that way. But, come on. Same thing in the United States. So, I mean, it's not just, Western Europe or Eastern Europe, but also in the United States. There's revulsion of wanting to actually speak the truth and give solidarity, even to points of view that you find reprehensible. Freedom of speech is dying around the West. Yeah, and that's horrible. So, if we're going to a little more personal topic, what is it like being an American conservative in Finland? Minority of a minority. Let's put it that way. Okay. I really feel like, one glove of a former pair, you can't get any more minority than that. So, I mean, I find that there are Finns online, people that I've met in groupings, events that think is similar to what I think. And so, I mean, there is a portion of Finnish society that have not been given over to complete lunacy, but yeah, I mean, being a conservative, being anti-Islam,
not just anti-Islamization, anti-Islam, and I'll say it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a reprehensible ideology. Tommy Robinson, said, hey, listen, it's the ideology.
Yeah.
There's nothing good in it. I mean, if you understand Islam, understand it in the chronological order of the Quran, and with a healthy understanding of abrogation, you know for a fact what Islam is all about.
Yeah.
There's no redeeming feature in it.
It's a really, really bad idea.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
And we don't want it. I mean,
yeah.
I don't want it anywhere, but at least I don't want it to spread.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what do you like about Finland?
Well, I think Finland, in spite of the socialist state, or vestiges of the socialist state, it's not,
not completely, but
no, it's not.
Some traits.
It is a welfare state with some vestiges of socialism. But regardless of that, I think it's a decent state. It's wonderful people, very, very honest people. I want to say to an extent, but I mean, basically, an honest people. Very friendly when you get to know people. Very clean environment. Short summers, long winters. And I don't know. I mean, it's a nice place to live. I mean, I'm raising my family. My children are all grown up and on their own. They're Finns.
Yeah.
And well.
Yeah. So, what, if any, do you miss from the United States?
What do I miss? I miss the Constitution. As a Johnny-come-lately, understanding the Constitution, the more you understand it, the more you know it, the more you love it. And you realize how much of an anomaly it is in world history. I miss, obviously, relatives and some of the foods, but,
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So, last time I interviewed an American conservative living in Europe, I got a lot of comments about why is he living in Europe anyway, if he's a conservative. So, there are obviously some people who don't understand why a right-leaning American would relocate to Europe or to Finland in specific. So, can you say something about the reason for why you live in the land of the thousand lakes?
My wife.
That's a good one.
There you go. My wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good reason to move pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
So, okay, unless you have something else to add? About anything?
Well, I mean, recent events, what's happened with this recent case in Sweden about the crying of Allahu Akbar from a minaret, which is, I guess, today. It happened.
Yeah.
It happened today.
Oh, okay.
And they passed a law in I don't even remember what city it was in. Barely pronounceable. And this Swedish Democrat was speaking, or had written a post online.
Right, you think about the Christopher Law.
Yeah, there you go.
That case.
Yeah. And basically was saying a factual thing.
Yeah.
That what's going to be repeated in the morning time here is the same thing that a jihadi says just before he explodes himself.
Yeah.
And so Sweden is up in uproar. What is the Justice Department, or what are the ombudsman, whatever? Somebody ratted on him.
Yeah.
Ratted on him.
Yeah.
And
I think that he was actually reported by a social democrat in the same city council.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a reprehensible thing to do, if you ask me. But
yeah, but hey, I mean, there is no freedom of speech. Let's talk about freedom of speech. There's no freedom of speech in Finland. There's no freedom of speech in Sweden, and Norway is still a big question mark. Am I right? Or
there's not much left.
Not much there either. Right?
Maybe in Denmark.
All right, we have no First Amendment right here. Some years ago, when Flemming Rose was in Finland, he spoke on Finnish national television, and it was under the purview of YLE, which is a state broadcaster, and it was the Freedom of Speech Week, and they hold an annual event once a year,
right,
to talk about freedom of speech, something that they do not really care for.
Right.
Only what they deem as protected speech,
Yeah.
But basically, issues that they can agree with. But if you fall outside their line of thinking, then, you know.
Yeah. In Norway, they say that they call it taking responsibility for your speech, which is a crazy concept, of course.
It is. I mean, what is the reason behind free speech? And from my perspective, it is that speech which you find offensive.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to outlaw speech that you agree with?
Exactly.
It's that speech which people try to take away their responsibility for confronting in a reasonable tone, offering their own opinions and having this debate and trying to win somebody over to the other side. And that's gone.
Yeah.
That's absolutely gone. So when Fleming Rose was speaking in Helsinki on live TV, basically all of the people there there was plenty of journalists, even the head of YLE, which is the Finnish state broadcaster.
Yeah.
Basically, you can see they weren't doing it, but basically they're doing this, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And everything he was saying completely went over their head. Ever since that time, you've seen a clamping down on free speech in Finland. You've seen net policing or internet police.
Right.
Micromanaging what people can say, can't say. People being, Duncan and being charged. Other people as well, and it just goes over and over and over again, the same type of stuff.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between them and what happened in the Soviet Union? Very little in that respect.
Yeah.
Very, very pathetic.
Yeah, that's sad. But thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
And God bless you.
You too.
So that was my conversation with Kenneth Sikorski. It was a pleasure to meet with him in Finland, and I hope to be able to meet with him again someday. I hope you found our conversation interesting. As I said in the beginning of this video, this is my day job, and any and all support is greatly appreciated. And if you like what I do, and think that it deserves some support, please consider sending me $1 or $2, or 10, or 100. That's always greatly appreciated. And keep us here at Swede Studios in your prayers. Also, check out my live stream on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 11 p.m. Central European Time. Until next time, have a nice day, happy Thanksgiving, and God bless.